All right, so we've got a working enemy that attacks the player, is capable of dying and killing the player. Everything's looking great, but we only have a single type of enemy. So we would like to have different types of enemies, and we're going to create a variety in a couple different ways. For one, this Grux character comes with multiple skins, which means we can have multiple versions of Grux. Let's go into our enemies folder, and here we have our enemy BP. We can right-click on this and duplicate it. And we can now have a different type of enemy. Now, if we go into our Grux folder, it's called Paragon Grux, and go to Characters, Heroes, Grux, and Skins, we'll see that we have 3 tiers here. Tier 1, 1.5, I presume, and 2. Now, in Tier 1, we have a Halloween, and there's a Halloween mesh. And we have a War Chief, and there's our War Chief mesh. So let's create some new different types of enemies with different Grux meshes. Now the beauty of this is these all use the same Grux skeleton, so we won't have to change anything skeleton-wise. So we have this Grux War Chief. Let's go back to our enemies folder, and for enemy BP1, let's rename this to Grux War Chief. And let's double click on Grux War Chief, and right away I'm seeing a compile error here. It's not recognizing this setter for enemy. Now the problem is we're setting this enemy, which is a variable type of enemy BP. Now we can fix this if we go to our class settings and set our parent class to enemy BP. That way we're deriving from the enemy BP, and this will no longer be a problem. Now the only different thing we need to do in our new Grux War Chief is to make sure that the begin play function on the parent class gets called. What we can do is here in the event graph, right-click on Event Begin Play, add call to parent function, and we need to call this here in Begin Play. We can add the call right here before anything else. This is essentially the same thing as calling super begin play in C++. This is going to result in our begin play in the enemy class to be called. Now, in addition to calling the parent begin play function, you're going to notice another thing that might seem strange. Over here, we'll see that we have a health bar widget component that's inherited and another health bar that's a new one. And it's the new one here, health bar 0, that's used in the event graph. And we don't need this because we already have the inherited one. So we're going to go ahead and delete this new health bar 0, and we're going to use the regular health bar instead in our get user widget object nodes here. So since we deleted the new one, these get user widget object nodes are missing their targets. We're going to drag in our old health bar that's inherited and plug that into these so those inputs are satisfied. And if we hit compile, we'll see anywhere here in the blueprint where we need to plug that health bar in, such as right here. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now let's take our mesh here in the Components tab, and instead of Grux, let's find Grux War Chief. And there is Grux War Chief. Go ahead and select that. So here we have the War Chief version of Grux, which looks pretty cool. It's got some designs on the skin and everything. And if we go ahead and take one of these and place them in the world, say over here, then all we need to do is move Grux down to the ground and set Grux's patrol points. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate Grux around here and select the patrol points and move them to a couple of different spots. And now this Grux character should patrol. And now we can play test this. And there is the new Grux. It's patrolling between its 2 points. And if we wait a few seconds, we'll see it run to the other point. And if we aggro it, it should chase us. And we should allow it to hit us, and it can kill us as well. So that gives us another Grux character. Now, as a challenge to you, go ahead and create some more Grux characters using the different skins that come with the Paragon Grux asset. So there's a couple here in Tier 1, there's one here in Tier 1.5, and there are 3 here in Tier 2. Go ahead and create some more so we can have a bunch of different types of Grux characters. Now, I'd like to set Grux Warchief to have a higher health value, so let's go to Grux Warchief Self and search for health, and we can set our health values here. Now, it looks like we made our health variable visible anywhere. I'd like to make that edit anywhere so we can change this for the different versions of our enemies. So let's go back into enemy.h and search for health, and let's make this edit anywhere instead of visible anywhere. So we'll go ahead and compile that. Now, while that's compiling, here in the editor, I'm going to set max health to, say, 300 and health to 300 now. Now, we can also set the War Chief's base damage. So let's look for damage here. And instead of a base damage of 20, let's set the War Chief's base damage to a higher value, say something like 40. And we can also change the size of the mesh. So let's go ahead and select the mesh. And I'm going to turn off snapping for scaling. And I'm going to scale this character up quite a bit so it's a little bit bigger. Okay, so we can test out our new enemy, and we can shoot the enemy, we can aggro the enemy can come chase us, and we can kill the enemy. Now, notice that the enemy will still chase us after we have killed it if it's already started that move to here in the chase branch of our behavior tree. And that's because if move 2 has already started, that character is already set to move to its target. And so we can prevent this from happening when the enemy dies by adding another decorator to this sequence here in the chase branch. So right-click and add a decorator, select Blackboard, and for this decorator, let's change the node name to isDead. And for the Blackboard key, we're going to select dead, and we need to make this isNotSet, and we'll set this to onValueChange. So as soon as this value changes, then we want to abort, and we're going to abort self. So go ahead and save, and now if we go ahead and shoot the enemy character, and the enemy begins running towards us, we can still kill the enemy, and it will no longer chase us. Okay, so we now have different types of enemies. In the next video, you're going to see several different versions of the Grux character. And we'll also work on getting more enemy meshes in aside from Grux, so we can have a big, diverse selection of enemies. I'll see you in the next video.